Welcome back to some more Create Integrated. Yes, back in our beautiful world, and last episode we got a storage set up, and I feel like this storage is going to last us a little while before we can get into other storage options, as we're going to be going through a couple of them before we can get to the really big ones, which is going to be refined storage. But now that I have a storage, I really want to start gathering more resources. We're going to need things like plenty of zinc. We're going to need a whole bunch of stuff to be able to make more of our materials, so that way we can make even more things. That's the whole fun of Create. And we can start to make things more efficiently the higher tier we get in that progression. As of right now, we are stuck dead center into the andesite age. And so we don't have a whole lot of options for filtering and things like that. And I do want to stick around in this, well, level of grind for a little bit, just to show some really fun ways that we can automate without actually needing brass. So I'm thinking today what we could do is, well, generate more of those resources. And one of the best ways to do that is by utilizing drills on a cart contraption. Now, if you're completely new to Create, cart contraptions are going to kind of blow your mind because it allows us to create something with Create and make it movable. Like anything, if you want a giant finger that's pointing in a direction that you build out of cobblestone and you want it to move on a train track, you can do that. If you want it to move on a cart rail, you can do that. If you want to create yourself like a traveling storage chest, you can do that. The possibilities are almost endless, but like I said, the real power in this is the ability for you to take this system and to be able to quite literally mine underground effortlessly. But for those of you who are veterans, you're going to really love this add-on that's in here today, as we should be able to also place torches automatically, which for those of you who know that placing torches on a cart contraption that's mining is not the easiest of tasks. By the way, if you didn't know, you're already 3 episodes deep, and if you haven't clicked that subscribe button, it might be a good time to definitely click that. Well, let's get on with the video. Oh, I know during the first episode I asked you guys about stress. Well, today I do also want to pose another question to you. What's your favorite way to build a drill contraption in Create? I would love to hear from you down in the comments below. Okay, I'm hearing you loud and clear. Chosen, you need brass before you can make a cart contraption. You need deployers. Well, not in my pack. And that's because deployers can be made with zinc hands. Yes, the luscious zinc hands, which is just simply made from zinc and can be made in the andesite age. And now we are going to specifically need about 3 of them. One is going to be placing blocks that are going to make sure we have a place to place some rails. One needs to place some rails for our cart contraption to continue flowing on. And then we also want one that is going to place torches for us. I'll explain that one in a little bit. First things first, we really need to understand how the deployers work in the first place. And we need to know what range they can actually place in. So if I give this a block to be able to place, it should place it right here. So there is a gap between the deployer that it then places blocks in. Now, these can also break blocks. If you use your wrench and you click on the actual hand, you can change its mode. Currently, it's in use mode. You give it a pickaxe, it's going to not really do anything. But if you click this into attack mode, it should actually try to mine this block over time. So yes, there are a couple of different modes, and you can give it a sword. It can attack mobs and all kinds of other things. It can just actively punch. And the item that it actually mines does go into the actual deployer. There is technically 2 slots that this kind of has in it. I believe if I break this, you can see the cobblestone that was inside is now not. So now we need to keep this in mind when we actually build our cart contraption. We know that it can place a block out. So whenever we design this, we need to make sure that it is in a way that can place a rail and make sure it places a block before the rail. So when I'm designing and building cart contraptions, I usually want to place down a cart assembler so I know exactly where this is going to be. And then I place a rail after and before. That way there is always a rail before and after for a cart to be in between. And this is actually where we want to place our rail. And this is where we're going to want to place our block. So we can go ahead and design it like so. So this is our block. Then we have a gap. And then right here is where we actually want a deployer. And we want this facing the opposite direction. So I am going to rotate this so it is facing this way. And that way we know if there is a void spot that happens to be underneath this, it is going to fill it with a block. And then for our next deployer, we want to make sure that we have an empty spot. This is actually the block that we want the rail to be placed on. Then we know we need an empty space, and then right here is where our deployer should go. And again, I will just rotate this around and even have this because I want the actual filter slots to be facing me. So as of right now, we have a cart assembler. Our cart will go here. If we have an inventory, this will then place cobblestone in an empty space if there is a spot to be placed here. And we also might want to make sure that there's a drill that could potentially drill this slot too, to make sure it always does place a block, because you could end up with weird situations where like there's lava or something weird, or like a spike that just happens to be there, something that, let's just say, like a cart or rail can't be placed on. And we also want to make sure we pick up these rails, because we're gonna have a rail that is right here, one in front of this one. We're always going to have a rail here, 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 and here. And right back here is the rail that we actually want to pick up. So that means we probably want a plow, or a mechanical plow, which can actually pick up rails to send back into our contraption. So there we go, a good old mechanical plow, and this just needs to go here. It is best if you do place it on a block, but it doesn't have to be resting on a block always. It's going to look just like this. Now next is actually drills, and I'm gonna make about 13 of these drills. As of right now we have 10. I need more sticks. So I'll get some of those made up. But I mean, this is where it is pretty easy to do. Like I'm going to need this many picks, and it gives me all of the resources out needed in order to make these. And so I shall craft away on all these drills. So let's start putting this stuff on here. Drills are very easy to lay out because they work just like this. We're able to place them in. Just look at the block, and it choose this side of the block you want it to be placed on. And so you don't even have to like go crazy and arch or anything like that. This is about the shape that I'm going with to get started. Now we're still missing storage, but we just want to make sure that we can have this connected all in some way. So something like this, for example, where we have these two blocks connected right here is going to work just fine. And then we do want a place to set, so we also need to think about that too. Now, another thing we also want to keep in mind is we need easy access to the cart assembler itself and the ability for us to place down a rail and gain access to it. So there's a couple of ways to make this easier. I think just setting a seat directly on top of the plow and then coming up with a seating solution is a good idea. So that way, while we're sitting on the seat, anytime we want to pick this contraption up, we can actually just access it from right here. So now this is just a little bit of decoration, but I do want to go over some things. Most of this stuff basically comes from the regular iron that goes into a saw. You can break it down into all kinds of different components, and then you can take these blocks and put it in the stone cutter as well and break it down. And so what I've done is I've done that exact thing. So right down here, we have this support that comes off the barrel, which I think is pretty cool. These are just regular girders, and I just have some blocks. I left access to the cart assembler, so that way if I need to give it a redstone signal and place one down to potentially fix this in the future, I can. These are copycat trap doors, which I do want to color to be able to look like the rest of the industrial iron. And you get this from zinc. So there that goes. And at any time that I need to open this while it's in contraption form, you can actually open trapdoors and interact with this, which is perfect. This barrel right here, very important because this is actually going to be our storage, believe it or not. And then in the back, we have a deployer, another deployer. This one is going to actually handle our torch placement. I've got some plans for this. So now I just need to take all of these components, glue them together just like this, and try to use as little glue as possible to be able to actually do this operation without also gluing any of these materials. We just want to make sure the things that are glued are the things that actually are connected here. Things you don't want to glue, for example, the cart assembler, right? And we also don't want to glue the rails themselves. So when all is said and done, this is all glued together just like I want. Now we get to work on some other fun stuff. Now let's go ahead and get our filters in place. So if we remember, this is going to be placing cobblestone or cobbled deep slate, and to be able to do two different ones, we can actually use a list filter. And so I'll put cobblestone in here, and then I'll put deep slate in here, make sure it's an allow filter, and then just place that filter inside of the filter slot. This one is just going to be placing rails, so that one's really simple. We just simply place a rail on here. Now for the torches, this is where things get a little bit more complicated. It is actually utilizing a add-on mod, an add-on mod that I wish had existed a long time ago, and that is create pattern schematics. This will allow our contraptions to repeat schematics. which is not normally possible. Well, unless the contraption was stationary and never moved from its position in the world, like this cart contraption, for example. Because normal schematics will work, but they are based on the exact position that you place the schematic down. But these can repeat. And this is going to be a lot of testing for me, as I'm not actually sure if this is going to retain its orientation. But let's just say I want to place in a torch. I need to take my pattern and I want to select this area and then select this area. I'm going to actually break the things that are inside it before I save it, so that way we just have empty space. And the goal is that it will just simply know that there's a torch here and it's going to place the torch down. So I'm going to define this as a repeatable schematic, and we're just going to call this torch and hit save. Now that we have this repeating schematic done, we need to go and actually make another empty schematic, place that in our schematic table, and then we need to define torch into that repeating schematic. So this right here is the position that it is going to be placing in. Like I said, I don't think that you can change this direction, which is interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this actually works when it's placed inside of this filter. We may have to keep them on us. For example, one for going one way, one for going the other, and just like keep it in our backpack whenever we go mining. So I could technically make two of them right now. So perfect. I've also defined another one that is torch east-west, and then we have the other one, like I said, that is defined as, well, technically right now torch, but its name should be now north and south. So interesting. We have this direction and this direction. I don't see the torch being displayed, but I think that is because of the way that this whole setup works. And you don't even have to define any filters. I mean, this thing is doing the filter. This deployer will only ever place the items that are inside of the schematics. But now we're almost ready. We also have to get our storage upgraded. So I'm not just using a normal barrel. I'm using a sophisticated barrel, which will be able to work inside of our contraption because we do have a compat mod that allows this to function. And to make this a sophisticated barrel, we just simply need to add a redstone torch to a barrel, and we can now upgrade this. And we can use andesite to upgrade it as of right now. And then this barrel has a couple of slots. We do have void upgrades, so we could void some things, but as of right now, I think I want to keep just about anything we mine. So with an upgraded barrel, and then also adding 2 stack upgrades in here, each of these slots should hold about 1,000 items each. And that should be pretty good for us getting started. Now, on top of everything else that we've been doing today, to make this even more powerful, let's go ahead and use some of that obsidian that we got right in the first episode. And I am making an enchanting table. I don't even want to upgrade it any further than just base. I'm going to grab some lapis, and I want to use this to enchant with some basic enchants all of our drills. This sounds absolutely wild, but we can actually apply enchants to our drills, giving them things like efficiency, for example, efficiency 2 here. All of this on base. We could potentially even get fortune on our gear. So there's all of these getting efficiencies, and it should help make these drills faster. And now that looks absolutely fantastic. So we're just about ready to put this all together. I am going to be using a furnace minecart to power this thing. And so the furnace minecart will go right down into here, and we need to turn this into a contraption. So to do this, we just need to make a lever and apply the lever onto here, giving it a redstone signal, and that should lift the entire thing. This is also going to let us know, is our entire thing connected? Okay, so it does look like I did miss a connection, and I just simply need to make sure that this is connected, and then everything gets moved up, and that's exactly what we want to see here. So now with this picked up and lifted, we should be able to pick the entire thing up as a contraption, allowing us to basically test this out. So what I typically like to do is, now that I have it in a contraption form, I can just place down some rails, and I like to place the cart on the last of the 3 rails, just to make sure that everything is situated correctly. And then all we have to do is push this along or get it started in some way. And the way we can do that is with some coal, and we just click on the cart, and it should build a path for itself. And I do want to see if it's going to place the torches correctly. This is the one thing that I am like super confused about and wondering if this is going to work properly. Huh. I mean, it hasn't placed a torch yet. And I would assume that it should. By the way, if we want to stop this at any time, we just pick up the cart contraption. Oh, and also I think that absolutely failed because I forgot to replace in the new schematic. So to be able to modify this, we place this in, and then of course ourselves get stuck inside of our own contraption. We can get up through the seat. But yes, over here, I will place in the new pattern schematic, making sure I guess it's going in the right orientation. There we go. That's now placed in. And let's give this another shot. Let's try it again. All right, we're going to pick that up. I'm going to pick this up. We have our few rails here. Place the cart in. And I do have torches in here, so that shouldn't be a problem either. We'll place this and give it a go. Are you going to place torches? Oh boy. I bet this is a define on location because I didn't right click to position it anywhere. Oh, so you would still have to define its position on the cart contraption. It's just that it will continue to repeat that. So every time we'd have to form the contraption, just to kind of demonstrate how this would function. For example, you place this, you place down your cart contraption, making sure it is completely solid. And then you make sure that you have the position of the schematic in line with where you plan on actually setting this up. And then you place this in, because now it is actively defined. And then we can go over here. There's a clone repeats the selected schematic, and that is not exactly what we want. We want this just to continue repeating, which it should do by default. Okay, so now it is actively applied, and now we can go back in, lift this up, and continue on. Okay, so place that there, just like we've been doing. Give it some coal, and now it should place that. Well, it should. By the way, when stuff like this happens, we can just pick this back up, and we're good to go. I think that was just because, but it did look like it placed the torches, which is cool. Okay, so let's try it again. We'll place this down right on the back. I'll give it some of that to go. Let's see. It'll break. There it placed a torch. It should wait like several blocks before placing another torch. That is beautiful. So now with that new knowledge, I'm going to make the actual like torch setup much wider. So yeah, something like this where it's on each side, like 9 blocks. That's probably fine. Now, if you haven't already joined the Discord, be sure to do that. That way you can get access to all of these schematics. I have tons of schematics over on the Discord already, and these schematics will also be added in the schematics channel. So be sure to check that out. You can find the link to the Discord down in the description below. So you know what? Now enough of this playing around. Let's actually get into the mines. So now I've got the contraption in. I've also placed in the new schematic pattern. I'll make sure to throw these back in here, and I've already replaced it. It's time to lift this thing up. So we pick it up. There it goes. You can hear it actually doing the mining, but we want to pick this up before I actually set it to go. And we'll get it started right here. And I mean, all we have to do, because it is going to collect its own cobblestone, is place it down, give it some fuel, and to tell it to go. That's it. And it's placing torches for us, which means we should be able to just hop on the back and just continue to ride. And it's just going to continue placing torches in here for us. Look at all the resources it's collecting. And I mean, even if we do encounter water, I think we'll be fine. I'm just worried about potential crystals or plants that it maybe can't break, like these, that may cause problems. But as of right now, we can just watch our inventory build up as we start to collect granite, ores, andesite, iron, all kinds of stuff. And while it's still mining, we can go back here and just sort of collect our resources, right? So if we see any iron in the wall, I'll just hop over here and grab it. And this is kind of epic because placing torches normally requires you to have like a block separator, and then you need something to pick up that specific block, stuff that isn't actually found in the world normally. And it just requires a whole bunch of extra steps and even more time in the drilling operation. So being able to do a schematic like this is so nice. Here's it going through water, by the way. Yeah, it's just going to place the rails right where the water's at, and water really doesn't mess with it too much. I'm surprised that even when it places the torch, it seems like it displaces the water That's wild. Now, for example, I need to stop, so I'll just pick up the cart where we currently were at, go back over here, and we can just continue on back the opposite direction. Oh, and look at that. That is nice. So I didn't have to actually redo the schematic. It is just placing the torches even on the other lane. So yeah. So no, I did not have to redefine it. It is like based off the position of where the actual contraption is. That's cool. And just like that, I've returned already to the base of operations. And so I can pick this all up. And there we go. This was an incredibly profitable journey, going all the way out that direction and this direction. All the torches placed in so nicely. Oh man. Later on, we could use this for like tunnels that dig out for trains going through mountains that lay out certain structures. This is going to be a pretty cool mod. But I mean, come on, for torches alone, this is fantastic. Now that I'm back home, I tell you what, this is where things get interesting. So let's take a look at all of our goods, and we can just place a single track down. We don't have to worry about anything here. And then inside of here is everything that we ended up getting from this. A ton of cobblestone, which is fantastic. So I can take all of this cobblestone out and then, for example, throw it into here to be turned into a bunch of gravel and then even sand after we're done with that. But we also ended up with quite a bit of iron, copper, things like that that are going to be really helpful moving forward. I didn't find as much zinc because zinc is found a lot more deeper underground. But all of this that we currently have, I can either save until we get some crushing wheels, which hopefully we can get pretty soon, or I can currently smelt it all. I think though this stuff might, for most of this, might be best saved until later on. That way we can get some XP out of actually processing this stuff. When this is crushed down in the crushing wheel, we get our raw copper, which will give us some XP nuggets, but also we get a little benefit here. If we wash this, we do get some byproducts for some things. Redstone, for example, coming from iron. So now let's take this, pick it back up now that I'm done with it, and we can just rename it in an anvil. And I'm what should I call this? I think I have a fantastic name. The Cobble Gobbler. Yes, Cobble Gobbler. That's going to be great. The nice part about this is even after it's placed down, it does maintain its name as we basically named the minecart itself, allowing us to keep it inside of our inventory. Yeah, that's not an inventory inception at all. So now that I have even more resources, I've kind of got an idea. I think at this point, we should definitely be able to make even more of our deployers and maybe start our first little sequenced assembly so that way we can make these mechanisms a little bit better. I mean, it's not going to be 100% automatic, but it will allow us to at least put in the ingredients and then it will make it a little bit more efficiently. So that way we just have to manually at the moment provide it with its ingredients. So now let's set this stuff up. So all I'm going to need to be able to technically make some automations for the andesite machine and make this a lot more effective and for the mechanism, well, just 4 of these deployers and then 3 of the mechanical presses. Now, to be able to do a sequenced assembly, it's not too bad. We need to have a starting point. So right here's a good starting point. And then right after that, I typically like to do this operation in my head. So we see we have 3 deployers and then a press. And so right here, we'll have 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And then right after that, I usually like to place in my shaft. So this is now going to complete it along a belt line. Let's actually remove this. I don't want it to be encased at the moment. We're going to place a belt from here, right click, and we're going to connect that belt. That's pretty straightforward. And then on the deployer side of things, we know that a deployer needs to go here, here, and here. And then to finish it up, we also need a press. Now, to make this easier to chain them together so their rotational force is carried through the whole thing, well, that's where we can rotate all of these. Now, if I hold down vein miner, we can rotate all of them simultaneously, and these are all now rotated together. And then this one over here, we can also look at the bottom and rotate. So that way this shaft is carried through the whole thing. Now over here, I want a similar setup, but this is for actually making the andesite machine. This has to rotate through 4 times. So this one is going to be a little bit more complicated to do. And usually we'll want to wait till after the brass age to be able to do this, but we can do this by hand still. And this one's going to be separated like so, and we are going to have a deployer directly in the center, and then we're going to have the presses to the side. So let's just make sure we have that. Deployer in the center, presses to the side, and then just like before, we'll have all of these rotated. Now let's start on this side. This is going to be a little bit easier before we get into this looping scenario. So typically we'll have an inventory right here, such as a barrel, just like this. This will be my input and this one will be my output. And then we'll have a funnel that goes here and then one over here. We just want to make sure this is just a single solid passage through, and that should be just fine. Down here, we can add some casings to make it look nice and filled out. But this right here is a processing module. So we can give this some rotational force, but if we use these encased chain drives, we should be able to carry some rotation through here. And so we can connect this up just like so and drag a connection all the way down to the bottom, add a shaft into here, and we can power this from anywhere. And this top line is now powered, and so is the bottom. You can see that if we grab a starbuncle wheel and we place this in, maybe 2 starbuncle wheels like that. There we go. And now we see that rotation here, but we do want to change the direction of these. So let's rotate that just like so. Let's actually make sure that's connected. There we go. And now it's going the right way. So the belt just carries things this way. And then if there was items in here, it's going to start processing them. I'm going to fix this stress issue here in a second, but yeah, I mean, this is the fundamentals. You know what? Let's go ahead and get these processing up. I mean, it's just an andesite casing. We have to put these things kind of in order. So it is going to be the andesite alloy. We're going to have the cogs, and we just are going to give it to it by hand. We can also hopper it into here if we wanted to, but I'm going to take 32. I'm going to send them on their way and just let these start generating. And it's going to start processing these one at a time. But this is going to produce the same amount with way less ingredients. We get 8 of them for this operation, by the way. So much more. That is fantastic. So now for the hard one. Okay, so this has to loop 4 times, and we currently do not have any way of filtering very well, but we do have access to a vault, which is typically what you would use to filter. Now in this case, I'm actually going to utilize a limited barrel. So the limited barrel is going to work really, really interestingly. So the goal is we send out our items. That's going to go through here. And then we need to pick up the thing that is completed when it is completed. And so that needs to go into this limited barrel. And thankfully we can filter these limited barrels. So as soon as we put an item in here, it is considered filtered. Then this would basically pick up the completed project. So anything that is not the completed project, well, that then needs to go into this outer barrel. So this outer barrel is going to continue on this way. This will be picked up and is going to transfer it back around. And then we're going to have another barrel on this side that is going to send it back into the loop. So what we should see is something like this. Items come out. There is going to be a collection that is going to take place right here, and will only allow the completed item to go into this barrel. And then another item will go into here if it hasn't been completed. Of course, it's going to pass onto this belt. This belt's going to be spinning the opposite direction. We're just going to feed it back out. And then this one's going to get fed back in. And then this one is going to get fed back out. And this is a way that we can filter in this pack early without brass. Now, the thing that we're going to be filtering is the andesite machine. So inside of a limited barrel, there's a couple of ways we can filter this. Just simply putting the item in, going into the memory tab, and then hitting select all slots. That actually locks this into place. And so this is actually the only thing now that can be inserted, even if it's not actually in there. And it works just like any other barrel mod that you may be used to, like storage drawers, for example. Now for this, I'm just going to use the regular large water wheels. This generates quite a bit of stress. And if you place the water in just the right spot, you can get all of these spinning and water is not going to overflow anywhere. So long as you've broken down, well, the back of it, or at least the whole area in the back, and given water a place to go. And you know what? Let's speed this up a little bit. So we'll go large, small, and then we'll go over one, add a casing to this, and then we'll go small. And this is going to start getting faster and faster the more times we do this. I've also done the same thing to the other side here, and I think this is going to be spinning in the right direction. Yes, that is spinning. And then over here, I'm just going to use a gearbox, and let's hope that this is spinning in the right direction. It is not, so that just means another gearbox I can technically use for this, just to kind of make things a little bit easier on myself. Now the belt is spinning in the correct direction. We've got to get this all powered and also add a shaft into here. The easiest way to reverse a belt like this is to just use a gearbox. So yes, another gearbox is going to work in this particular place. And that means this belt's going to spin this way, and then this one's going to be spinning this way. To get these powered, I'll just take that gearbox and I'll swap it into a vertical gearbox, slap that down, and now we have the ability to bring a shaft up here, which is going to work out really, really well because we can use something like an encased chain drive, place that here, and swap it, and it'll actually change the axis. And now all of this is powered. Oh, this is gorgeous. Okay, so this is about as simple as it's going to get for such a small setup. And let's see if I got this working correctly. All you got to do is take like a stack of these, give it to this deployer, and then I'll give it 16 of these casings. That's then going to get pressed. Oh, let's hope this works. It sends that, presses again, isn't complete, so should carry on. And it's going to loop back around. And it may end up jamming this up. No, it's going to go into the barrel, and it's going to wait until it can actually be placed forward. And it's just going to continue doing this for all 16. And so we'll have to actually have 16 times 4? Yes, of these andesite mechanisms to make all 16 of these work. No, I tell you what, for something that is so like fundamentally simple, boy, it really turns out really complex when you are limited on your brass. Yeah, I mean, filtering makes this whole setup so much easier. But there we go. I mean, we are already producing these. You can see the 7 have now built up in here, and that is our output. It's just in a weird spot. After a short period of time, all 16 is now done. That is a huge success. All of this has been very, very nice. We got ourselves a cart contraption that allows us to go mining effortlessly, and we also set up the automation required to get us underneath the andesite age and allow us to technically make these things much cheaper. But there is still a lot ahead of us, and I hope you guys are looking forward to that. And if you are, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And well, give this video, guys, a huge thumbs up. And you know what? Without further ado, it's time for me to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks, well, that is going to go out to Rex Zoom. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting my content in one of the best ways possible. Thank you, boss. And guys, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Of course, as always, thanks for watching.